Ladies and gentlemen, the best relationship advice no one ever told you is this. Love is not something you fall into, it is something you build, quietly, daily, and often invisibly. We grow up believing that the right person will magically make everything easy, that love should feel effortless all the time, and that if it hurts, it must be wrong. But the truth is, real relationships don't survive on butterflies alone. They survive on choices, patience, and self-awareness. No one tells you that love is less about how strongly you feel and more about how responsibly you behave. Feelings come and go, even in the strongest relationships. What stays is how you speak when you're tired, how you listen when you disagree, and how you show up when it would be easier to walk away. Love is revealed not during the highlights but during the ordinary and the difficult moments. The first truth that changes everything about relationships is this: love is built on responsibility, not just feelings. Feelings are powerful, beautiful, and necessary, but they are not stable enough to carry a relationship on their own. Feelings rise when life is easy and fall when life becomes heavy. Responsibility is what stays when excitement fades, when stress enters the room, when misunderstandings appear, and when two imperfect human beings are forced to face reality together. Most people enter relationships chasing a feeling. They want to feel wanted, excited, understood, admired, and emotionally high, and there is nothing wrong with that. But the problem begins when we assume that love should always feel good, and when it doesn't, we panic. We think something is broken. We think the person has changed. We think we chose wrong. What no one tells us is that the moment love becomes real is often the moment it stops feeling easy. Responsibility in love means understanding that your actions matter even when your emotions are tired. It means choosing to be kind when you feel irritated, choosing to listen when you would rather withdraw, and choosing honesty even when silence feels safer. Anyone can be loving when they are happy. Real love shows itself when happiness is not guaranteed. Being responsible in a relationship does not mean controlling or fixing another person. It means owning your behavior, your words, and your impact. It means recognizing that what you say in anger can leave scars longer than the argument itself. It means realizing that love is not just about how deeply you feel, but how carefully you act. We are rarely taught that love is a commitment to emotional maturity. Responsibility means learning how to manage your own reactions instead of blaming your partner for triggering them. It means asking yourself, why did this hurt me? Before asking, why did they do this to me? When two people take responsibility for their inner world, the relationship becomes a place of growth instead of conflict. Love without responsibility often turns into entitlement. People say, if you loved me, you would know, or if you cared, you wouldn't feel this way. But love is not mind reading. Responsibility is communication. Responsibility is clarity. Responsibility is expressing needs instead of expecting perfection. It's understanding that your partner is not your emotional dumping ground, but a human being with limits. Responsibility also means staying present during uncomfortable conversations. Many relationships fail not because of betrayal, but because of avoidance. People avoid hard talks, difficult truths, and emotional accountability. They let small issues pile up until they become unbearable. Responsible love addresses problems early, gently, and honestly, even when the conversation feels awkward or scary. Another part of responsibility is consistency. Feelings can inspire grand gestures, but responsibility creates trust. Trust is built when words match actions, when promises are kept, and when behavior remains steady over time. A responsible partner doesn't disappear during conflict and reappear during comfort. They don't love loudly today and neglect tomorrow. They show up even when the relationship isn't convenient. Responsibility also means recognizing that love does not excuse harm. Being in love does not give anyone permission to disrespect, manipulate, or emotionally neglect another person. True responsibility includes accountability. It includes apologizing without excuses, changing behavior instead of repeating apologies, and understanding that love should feel safe, not confusing or draining. We must also understand that responsibility goes both ways. One person cannot carry a relationship alone. Love collapses when one person gives excuses and the other gives effort. A healthy relationship is built when both people understand that love is a shared duty, not a one-sided sacrifice. Perhaps the most difficult form of responsibility is staying when it would be easier to leave, and leaving when staying would destroy your self-respect. Responsibility is not about endurance at any cost. It is about wisdom. It is knowing when to work through problems and when to walk away with dignity. Loving responsibly sometimes means choosing growth over attachment. Love is not proven by intensity, jealousy, or obsession. It is proven by reliability, emotional accountability, and respect. When you stop asking, "How do I feel right now?" and start asking, "How am I showing up?" your relationships begin to change. Because feelings may start love, but responsibility is what keeps it alive. Ladies and gentlemen, the second truth that transforms every relationship is this: communication is about understanding, not winning. Most of us were never taught how to communicate in love. We were taught how to defend ourselves, how to prove our point, how to protect our ego, and how to make sure we don't look weak. So when conflict enters a relationship, we don't speak to connect, we speak to conquer. And in doing so, we slowly lose the very person we are trying to hold on to. In many relationships, conversations turn into competitions. Who is right? Who is wrong? Who started it? Who hurt more? Words become weapons, and silence becomes punishment. People interrupt, raise their voices, bring up the past, and aim for victory rather than clarity. But the moment communication becomes about winning, the relationship starts losing. Understanding requires humility. It requires the willingness to admit that your perspective is not the only reality in the room. Two people can experience the same situation and feel entirely different things, and both can be valid. Healthy communication begins when we stop saying, "You're wrong," and start saying, "Help me understand how you feel." Listening is the most powerful form of communication, yet it is the rarest. Most people listen only long enough to prepare a response. They are not present, they are rehearsing their defense. True listening means giving your partner the safety to express themselves without fear of being attacked or dismissed. It means hearing the emotion beneath the words, not just the words themselves. When someone feels unheard, they don't just feel frustrated, they feel alone. And loneliness inside a relationship is far more painful than loneliness outside of it. Many people don't leave because they stopped loving. They leave because they stopped feeling understood. They tried to explain themselves too many times and eventually ran out of words. Communication rooted in understanding also means choosing the right moment. Not every truth needs to be spoken in the heat of emotion. Timing matters. Tone matters. The same words can heal or harm depending on how and when they are delivered. Speaking while angry often feels honest, but it is usually careless. Responsible communication waits until emotions settle so clarity can speak instead of rage. Another unseen part of healthy communication is vulnerability. Winning an argument often requires armor. Understanding requires openness. It requires saying, "This hurt me," instead of, "You always hurt me." It requires expressing fear, insecurity, and needs without blaming. Vulnerability invites closeness. Defensiveness invites distance. We are also rarely told that silence can be just as damaging as harsh words. Shutting down, withdrawing affection, or refusing to talk is often used as a form of control. But silence doesn't create peace, it creates confusion. Healthy communication means staying emotionally available even when the conversation is uncomfortable. Understanding focused communication also includes accepting influence. It means allowing your partner's feelings to matter, even when you don't fully agree with them. It means being willing to adjust behavior, not because you were forced, but because you care. Love that refuses to adapt eventually breaks. Apologies are another powerful form of communication. A real apology is not a defense. It doesn't include but or excuses. It acknowledges impact, not intention. Saying "I didn't mean to hurt you" is very different from saying "I see that I hurt you, and I'm sorry." One protects the ego, the other protects the relationship. Communication is not about saying everything you think. It is about saying what needs to be said in a way that can be heard. Brutal honesty without compassion is just brutality. Compassion without hone. Style is avoidance. Balance is where understanding lives. The strongest relationships are not free of conflict, they are rich in understanding. When both people choose to listen instead of win, to understand instead of accuse, and to connect instead of defend, communication becomes a bridge rather than a battlefield. And on that bridge, love learns how to walk safely, even during the hardest conversations. Ladies and gentlemen, the third truth that quietly shapes the success or failure of every relationship is this: boundaries protect love. They do not weaken it. Many people hear the word boundaries and immediately think of distance, rejection, or coldness. They believe that if love is real, it should be limitless, always available, and endlessly sacrificing. But love without boundaries does not become deeper, it becomes heavier. From the beginning, we are often taught that love means giving everything. Give your time, your energy, your attention, your forgiveness, even your silence. We praise people who endure too much and call it loyalty. But what we fail to recognize is that when you give without limits, you don't create closeness, you create exhaustion. And exhaustion slowly turns into resentment. Boundaries are simply clear agreements about what is acceptable and what is not. They are not walls built to keep someone out. They are lines drawn to keep the relationship healthy. A boundary says, "This is how I can love you without losing myself." Without them, love becomes confusing, inconsistent, and emotionally unsafe. One of the biggest myths in relationships is that setting boundaries means you don't care enough. In reality, people who set boundaries often care deeply. They want the relationship to last, not to burn out. Boundaries prevent small issues from turning into deep wounds. They give structure to love, just like rules give safety to a game. Many people avoid boundaries because they fear conflict. They stay silent when something hurts, they tolerate behavior that drains them, and they convince themselves that love requires patience without limits. But unspoken boundaries don't disappear, they turn into silent anger. And silent anger has a way of leaking out in tone, distance, and emotional withdrawal. Healthy boundaries also teach people how to treat you. When you allow disrespect, inconsistency, or emotional neglect, you send a message, often unintentionally, that this behavior is acceptable. People don't always cross boundaries because they are bad. Sometimes they cross them because no line was ever clearly drawn. Setting boundaries requires company. Courage, because it risks discomfort in the short term to create peace in the long term. It means saying no without guilt, expressing needs without apology, and walking away from conversations that turn disrespectful. Boundaries are not demands, they are standards. They do not try to control another person's behavior, they clarify your own. Another important truth is that boundaries are not punishments. They are not silent treatments, ultimatums, or emotional withdrawal. A real boundary is communicated clearly and calmly. It sounds like honesty, not hostility. It invites respect rather than fear. Boundaries also protect intimacy. When two people feel emotionally safe, closeness grows naturally. When one person feels constantly overwhelmed, controlled, or ignored, intimacy fades. Love thrives where there is mutual respect, not constant self-sacrifice. We must also understand that respecting boundaries goes both ways. Healthy relationships are not about one person setting limits and the other constantly resisting them. They are about mutual care. When you love someone, you don't see their boundaries as obstacles. You see them as instructions for loving them better. Another difficult lesson is that not everyone will respond well to boundaries. Some people benefit from your lack of them. When you start setting limits, you may be accused of changing, being selfish, or becoming distant. But boundaries don't change who you are, they reveal who respects you. Boundaries also require self-awareness. You cannot expect others to honor limits you haven't defined for yourself. If you don't know what drains you, hurts you, or matters to you, your boundaries will be unclear. Self-respect is the foundation on which boundaries stand. Sometimes, boundaries expose the truth about a relationship. If someone consistently ignores, mocks, or violates your limits, the issue is no longer communication, it is respect. Love cannot survive where respect is absent. Boundaries do not push love away, they protect it from being destroyed. They allow two people to remain whole while choosing each other. When love is guided by respect, clarity, and self-worth, it becomes not only stronger, but sustainable. Ladies and gentlemen, the fourth truth that many people discover too late is this: you cannot heal a relationship by abandoning yourself. At first, self-abandonment often looks like love. It looks like compromise, patience, understanding, and sacrifice. It looks like putting the other person first, staying quiet to keep the peace, and convincing yourself that your needs can wait. But over time, what feels like love slowly becomes loss. The loss of your voice, your identity, and your sense of worth. Many people believe that if they just give a little more, tolerate a little longer, and try a little harder, the relationship will finally become safe and fulfilling. They silence their discomfort, explain away disrespect, and normalize emotional pain. They tell themselves that love requires endurance. But love that demands the disappearance of one person is not love, it is imbalance. Self-abandonment begins the moment you start ignoring your own emotions to protect someone else's comfort. When you feel hurt but say you're fine. When you feel overwhelmed but stay silent. When you feel unseen but convince yourself you're asking for too much. Each time you choose silence over honesty, you teach yourself that your feelings matter less. Over time, this creates an internal split. Outwardly, you appear calm and supportive. Inwardly, you feel frustrated, exhausted, and disconnected. You begin to resent the very person you are trying to please, not because they are cruel, but because you have been unkind to yourself in their presence. No relationship can heal while one person is slowly disappearing. You cannot build closeness on self-betrayal. Intimacy requires authenticity, and authenticity requires self-respect. When you hide your true thoughts, needs, and limits, your partner is no longer loving the real you. They are loving a version of you shaped by fear. Another painful truth is that over-sacrifice does not inspire appreciation. It often creates entitlement. When someone becomes used to you always adjusting, always forgiving, and always staying, they may stop noticing the cost. Not because they are heartless, but because human nature adapts quickly to what is freely given without boundaries. Healing a relationship does not mean fixing another person at the expense of yourself. It means bringing your full, honest self into the connection. It means saying, "This hurts me," without fearing abandonment. It means trusting that the right relationship can hold your truth without punishing you for it. Self-abandonment. NT also disconnects you from your intuition. Your body often knows something is wrong long before your mind accepts it. Tension, anxiety, constant self-doubt, and emotional exhaustion are signals, not weaknesses. Ignoring them does not make the relationship stronger, it makes you weaker within it. We must also understand that love is not proven by how much pain you can tolerate. Endurance is not devotion. Devotion is mutual care. It is two people adjusting, listening, and growing together. When only one person is doing the emotional work, the relationship becomes a burden instead of a partnership. Choosing yourself does not mean giving up on love. It means redefining it. It means understanding that your needs are not obstacles to intimacy, they are the pathway to it. When you honor yourself, you invite others to do the same. Sometimes, the most loving act is to stop shrinking, to stop explaining away behavior that hurts you, to stop hoping that silence will fix what honesty could heal. Speaking your truth may feel risky, but losing yourself is far more dangerous. Ladies and gentlemen, relationships are meant to expand you, not erase you. You are not meant to survive love, you are meant to grow within it. The moment you choose self-respect alongside connection, you give the relationship its only real chance to heal.